Hey, some people are having to miss some time at school, and so I thought I'd make a video here to help you get started because getting started is the trickiest part of programming. And without just some personal interaction, I think it's going to be crazy difficult. So I'll try to create these videos as often as I can. So what we are doing is, well, this is going to be our first program, okay? And so right now we're using .NET Fiddle. This is a way of coding online. There's many ways. This is pretty open. Hopefully we get our laptop soon, and it's going to be much better once we can use Visual Studios, and you'll see. But what you can do is name it here. I'm just going to call this first program. One because I've had other first programs already. And so what we're going to do is learn how to code in C Sharp. I'm going to make this a bit bigger here. See if I can. It's pretty good, I guess. No, it's not the best. Okay, so what we're going to do is see what this does. Down here is what we call the console. Okay, it says hello world right now, and if we hit run, then it updates the console, which is down here. And we can change what it says by changing this hello world. We know that hello world, so just by some reasoning, we can see, oh, if I change this to my name and then hit run, oh, now it's my name. I can make it say whatever I want. If I do, I just change these brackets, right? What if I copied this, okay, copy, and then I did it again, pasted it, and changed it. Is a great guy. And now run it. I got 2 lines. This is fantastic. Look at this. So we can write to this console anytime we want. How do we do that? Well, we wrote console.writeLine, and then it wrote a line to the console. Okay, actually that's okay. That makes sense. If we're going to do something to the console, we got to say console. And notice every single character counts. This has to be a capital C. The rest have to be lowercase. Okay, and then we need a period, no spaces, and then we write write line. Oh, don't do that. Where there has to be a capital W and then a capital L. We call this camel case, starting with a capital letter. Okay, camel case means it's one word, but each new word, there's no spaces, but each new word starts with a capital letter. That's camel case. Okay, and so every character needs to be done exactly correctly. Okay, if you've been doing Codecademy, then you would have learned about comments. If you do 2 forward slashes, you can write comments. This is a comment. It is not run by the compiler. The compiler is the computer running this code. Okay, so we can comment stuff. And what I want to highlight and tell you guys is every character is vitally important. Okay, so you cannot skip anything. You can't skip anything. And so then we've got this bracket, then we got the quotations. The quotations in between quotations is less vitally important. It's what we want printed. So obviously we can mess up here and it wouldn't matter because that's just what it's going to display. It can display whatever we want. Okay, now there are some quirks there as well, but we'll get to it. We close it, the quotation, this is the end of the string. We call this a string. It's a bunch of text. And then we close the bracket, and then we close the semicolon. Okay? Semicolon ends a line. It tells the computer that's the end of the line. Move on to the next line. Okay? Or that's the end of an instruction. Go to the next instruction. Because technically, we could do this, and it would not complain. Okay? Because it would say, oh, this semicolon is the end of an instruction, new instruction. But we don't because it looks gross. And so using lines is really good. Okay, so we've learned how to write a line, but this is not crazy uh, great yet. We would want to interact with the user a bit. So why don't we, instead of saying John Reimer, because who wants to see my name, we write welcome, because everyone likes to be welcomed. And now let's ask them a question. What is your name? Okay, question mark. So we say what is their name, and now let's get the user's name. That'd be pretty cool. How do we get something? We've asked for it. Okay. We first have to ask for the name, and then we can get the user's name. How do we do that? We need to store it in a variable in order to remember it. And so in order to remember anything, we need to make a variable. We've used these in Scratch, and they're very similar. And I always put my variables at the top. Always put variables at the top. I do this, variables, comment it, and then I start writing. And so the first variable we want is a string because we want the name, and the name would be text. And so string is text. And so string name. This is how we make a variable. To make a string variable, say string, then give the variable a name. In this case, let's call it user's name just to be more specific. So user name, just like that. That's perfect, right? This is specifically as the user's name. It's not just anyone's name, whoever's using this. String, user name, okay? I use camel case, but for variables, I always want to have a lowercase to begin, okay? That's just good protocol. And now let's take this username. We've declared it. It's a string. We've got a spot in memory where we're storing this. And what we're going to do is we're going to say username. What is it? It is whatever the user enters after we ask them what their name is. Okay. So what are they going to enter? We will read it in by doing a console.read. And look at this line tab. Oh, it gives us brackets. This is beautiful. Okay. If we do a console.read line, this is different than a write line. Write line displays something. Read line reads it in. Okay, it takes whatever the user writes and we're going to store it in username. Okay, what's the matter here? There's no problem. I don't know. Should run. I'll run it. Okay, welcome. What is your name? John. Nice. Good. It let me enter a name. Now let's do something cool. Let's clear the screen and respond to the user. Okay. How do we clear the screen? Well, it's the console is the screen, and so console dot, and look, these are all options that we've had. Console dot, well, why don't we do clear? Okay, look at that, clear. And now let's respond to the user. How do we respond to the user? Well, probably want to write something. So I'll just copy this, okay? And let's respond to the user, paste console.writeLine, looks good. Instead of saying, what is your name? We will say, nice to meet you, Chris. Wait, we shouldn't say Chris because we don't know if their name is Chris. So I do a space, and I'm going to do a plus. How do we reuse the name they just told us? Well, we stored it in username. That's our variable, username. So we've stored text in a thing called username. Username is the name of the place where we're storing the text. We don't know their name, but we know it's stored in username. So we type it in exactly the way that it exists the other where we named it. And let's see what this says. So what is your name? John, enter. Nice to meet you, John. That's awesome. It cleared the screen and now it greets me. That's beautiful, right? And so what we're going to do next is try to get a number. So the next thing I want to get is their age. And before I clear the screen, I want to do this all, because for Mad Lib especially, I want to do this all before we clear the screen. So I'm giving you something. Well, every time that we want to get information from a user, we have to prompt it first. Because if you just do a read line and you call it username, if we hadn't asked for their name, they would just see, oh, well, let's just comment this out. How does this look? Welcome. How does this feel as a user? Why do I have to type? Is this like some bot? What if I say hello? Hello? Nice to meet you. Hello. It's like, oh, that was supposed to be my name. Well, I didn't know that. It's frustrating. So don't make a program that's frustrating. Make a good program. That's your job. You're the programmer. And so what's the next thing that we should do? We've got the user's name. Let's get their age. And so get user's age. Anytime you want something, ask first, then store response in variable. Okay. And so if we want the user's age, we have to ask. So we do console.writeLine, and we do what is your age? Like that, close the brackets, semicolon, and then we have to do a read line and store their age. Okay, so it's going to be a lot like this. Why don't we do that? That's the same thing, right? We've got a variable and we store it. And so let's see what this looks like. You might be able to anticipate what's going to happen. And so if I do this, John is my name. What's your age? 28. Nice to meet you, 28. What? But I wrote John as my name and my age, I wrote 28. But I stored it in username. So whatever I originally wrote in username after they asked my name got overwritten with my age. Okay, so I need a new variable. And so to make a new variable, what I'm going to do is I could do this string age, except an age is a number. And we can store it as a string, but there's often times where we're going to really want it to be stored as a number, so we can say do some math and decide how old they are, and if they're older than someone else. If it's a string, we can't do it. We need to do any comparisons. We need it to be stored as an int, and so store age as a number. Let's do number without decimals, because no one says I am 28.7 years old. That's ridiculous. And so that is an int. A number without a decimal is an int. And the way we do this is uh, we say, what is your age? That's the line that we're on. And instead of storing it in username, we're going to store it in age. Okay. But the problem is now we get this red line because console.readline gives us a string. You see that how it says cannot implicitly convert type string to int? And so a string is text. How do we know that they entered a number? We trust them. And if they don't, they'll break us, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that string that they entered and we're going to convert it dot to int. And see how we got three options here? In 16, 32, and 64. Those are different sizes. Okay, 32 bytes. And this is the one we want. We want dot to int 32. We're going to get rid of the second bracket because what are we converting? We convert whatever's between the brackets. Okay, and so now this is the opening bracket, this is the closing bracket, and what are we going to convert to an int? Whatever's between the brackets, and this is a console.readline, which is we're going to accept any text from the user and we're going to convert it to a number and store it into age. Okay, so what is your age? Right there. It's whatever they enter, converted to an int. And so now what we can do is nice to meet you, and then do a plus period. You are plus age plus years, space, years old. Close bracket. Those quotes. Now we can run it, and now we can do name, John, age, 28, enter. Nice to meet you, John. You are 28 years old. Very good. What a useful program. This is beautiful. Last thing is we're going to get one more piece of information. Okay. Get users wage. How much do you make per hour? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a console. We always ask first, console.write line, and then we ask them the question, how much do you make per hour? Okay, pretty simple, close the bracket, semicolon. And then what we're going to do is, space doesn't really matter, but it's not clean. We have to get it and store it. Now, a wage, hourly wage, might have a decimal, right? And so int might not be the right thing. We should use a double. So we're going to say double wage. Or I'm going to say rate. That's what I use in a different program. Rate for the hourly rate, and store hourly rate as a number with a decimal. That is a double. We have to call it a double. A double means a number with a decimal. Okay, and so to get this, it's going to be a lot like this line. Okay, because a string won't work, so we can't do rate equals console.read line, because we're going to get this problem that we cannot implicitly convert type string to double, right? So we have to convert it to a double. So we convert dot to double. Oh, it's there. And then what we put between the brackets for that one, we put the read line. And now we've got it. We've got their hourly wage. And so now we're going to put our final statement in here. Okay. Now I've pre-created one. So here's mine. This should have done username. Okay, and then you can run it. So now I've made a statement that says, "What's your name, John? What's your age, 28? What's your hour? How much do you weigh per hour? 15.25." You can use a decimal. I'll zoom out so you can read this. For every good person in this world, there is a person like you, John. You're the saddest 28-year-old I have ever met, and I'm a computer, so I know everyone who has ever been on the internet. You may get paid 15.25 per hour, but you are worth no more than a single piece of toilet paper. What a great privilege it is to code and get to make the computer do whatever you want. Isn't that nice? So here's the basic idea of what you are going to do in your Mad Libs. You're going to declare all your variables up top, okay? And then you are going to ask a bunch of questions, okay? You're going to ask a question like enter a verb. And then you're going to store the verb in a variable that you created, okay? And you can use numbers in your variables. That's been a question. You could do age 2. You just got to make sure that later on you use the right term. Now, this age doesn't work because I never made it, but age 2, that's all good. Okay? As long as you're consistent with what you've got. Okay, and here's age again. So you'd have to change all of them. So try to be consistent and just do it right the first time. Okay, and so then you ask questions and you get the info. Okay, so enter another verb, enter a number, right? You need to use at least one number and you need to use one integer and one double. Okay, because I want to watch you convert. And then you're going to clear the screen and you're going to write your story. So notice how my final write line is my story. It's lots of text entering in. Notice this, in order to use a variable, you close the quotes, say a plus, you enter the variable name, another plus, and then reopen the quotes. So make sure it looks just like this, and then you're good to go. All right. So this is kind of what you need to be working towards, and this should give you a good idea of how to make a Mad Lib. So good luck, and yeah, keep asking questions if you have them.